All right, Miami Dolphins fans, how are we doing today? It is Ben Morgan of the Fins Up Network. And as you can see, I am not by myself. As I talked about in my first Miami Dolphins versus Indianapolis Colts preview video of this week, go back and check that one out if you haven't seen it already. It dropped on, I want to say, Wednesday. Me and Zach are actually even recording this on Wednesday. So we don't have the latest updated injury report or anything, but hey, it's a time that worked, and we get to go behind enemy lines with one of, I mean, quite honestly, I'll be upfront and honest, Zach. I don't know a million people that cover the Indianapolis Colts, but I know you, and I know you do a damn good job. So you guys are out there. Get subscribed if you haven't done so already. You are in for a treat. We are getting some good inside information about the Indianapolis Colts, our Week 7 opponent. So Zach Hicks of the Locked On Colts podcast. Zach, I'm going to be completely honest with you. When the schedule comes out, I see Week 7 Dolphins Colts. I'm penciling that in as a win for the Miami Dolphins. No disrespect. You got a young quarterback. You're kind of a team on the up and up. But you know what? We're coming out of a bye. We're out with this high-flying offense. I'm penciling that one in as a win. Well, I tell you what, things changed quickly in Week 2 when we lost our starting quarterback. And now we're in a situation where Tua is likely coming back in Week 8. We are going to battle our ass off just to go simply 2-2. And you guys stand in the way. And quite honestly, it's going to be a test. I know how the vibes are around Miami Dolphins and our fans. How are the vibes around the Indianapolis Colts right now?
Oh man, I think the vibes around all but like 3 teams in the NFL right now are terrible. So I would kind of say terrible, but like probably not as bad as your guys, because at least to the like most rational fans when it came to the Colts, we understood what this season was going to be. We're starting a 22-year-old quarterback who was particularly not great in college, obviously. So you're taking that long-term project with him and just trying to get him reps on the field, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. He hasn't gotten a ton the last couple of weeks. Should be back this week, but we'll see. But we kind of knew that this was more of a long-term approach. Like, they were a fairly good team last year, 9 wins with a backup quarterback in Gardner Minshew, who just got benched recently. So clearly he's not the greatest quarterback in the world here. So yeah, this was a solid team like that could win some games, but we kind of knew what to expect. Like, well-coached team, competitive team, but young quarterback. So it's going to be highs and lows. So I think most rational fans are kind of like, yeah, this is kind of expected. 3-3 right now. Richardson missing some games. It's not the most optimistic thing, but it is part of, life right now. But you always find things to be upset about. The GM didn't do enough with our defense. The GM didn't do enough with our offense. All these injuries, which, gosh, by the time people are listening to this, the Colts injury report right now is like half the roster now. And
everyone was limited today, I think. The whole roster was just limited.
Half the roster did not practice. I mean, I think Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, and Braden Smith will go, but like, these guys are going to be hampered all the way up until the Colts Week 14 bye week because they don't get a chance to rest. So, nobody's really happy right now outside of Vikings fans right now, Detroit Lions fans.
Chiefs to an extent. Lions are probably the hot team right now. Well, I'm glad that we can kind of just live in this world of just like uncertainty and maybe even a little level of misery, because I think us as Dolphins and Colts fans, we sort of go through it more often than not. Zach, I am going to talk to you about that quarterback because I am very intrigued by the entire situation. But before I do, I've been calling that the Dolphins' offensive philosophy while Tua is out, kind of like the not-so-secret sauce. The Miami Dolphins' chance of winning without Tua is finding success in the run game. And, hey, the last time we played the Patriots. Only our second win of the year. Ran for nearly 200 yards in that game. Now, based on at least the statistics, and I've seen probably 2 or 3 Colts games this year, they haven't been impressive against the run. They're allowing 155 yards per game. That's the second most in the NFL. I specifically remember the game they played against the Green Bay Packers, where you knew they were going to run. A similar situation against the Dolphins, where you know they're going to run. Is that something that the Colts have improved on lately? Is that something that we can expect to find success with? Or is that something Colts have improved on? Or is that an area that we can exploit?
The one thing that scares me the most about this matchup is if Mike McDaniel looked during the bye week and just watched that Green Bay Packers game and said, we're going to do all that same stuff. Because if they come out saying we're going to do all this counter misdirection stuff, counter power type. We're going to do wide receiver reverses and all that. Like whatever gave the Colts trouble in that game, despite the Packers not wanting to throw the ball and still running for 200 yards in the first half.
Yep.
That's the most terrifying aspect of this matchup to me, because aside from that, you guys have struggled this year. Like there's no secret, especially with whatever's happening at quarterback, with whoever's playing at quarterback. It's limited the offense to such a degree that it's been tough to get anything like any positive. I mean, the Tennessee Titans are a terrible football team, and you guys got the doors blown off you by the Tennessee Titans. Like
that wouldn't hurt. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So my only fear for your guy with your guys' offense is if he studied that Green Bay Packers game. I will say this about the Colts: since that game, they have leaned in heavily to like do whatever they can to stop the early down run. Now it's had some mixed results, like the Chicago Bears. They just dominated the Bears in the trenches of that game. Bears couldn't run whatsoever in that game. Pittsburgh Steelers, they couldn't really run. This past week against the Titans were able to run the ball a little bit, but Pollard's been like that against everybody this year. You guys saw that firsthand when you guys played the Titans. So it is a little bit of like mixed results since then, but I will say the Colts, I mean, they are putting since that Packers game, they have a defensive tackle playing D-end on base downs, and Adam Gotsis, who has not played defensive end since high school. They're going the big end. They're going base defense with Jaylen Carlisle as our third linebacker who's playing like 30% of the snaps, and they're doing cover 3 on early downs to bring their strong safety into the box. They are stacking the box on early downs. And it's been mixed results even with that, but they are doing everything they can to make sure that Packers game doesn't happen again, which I respect to a degree. You could probably kill them with play action on first down because of that, because they got so many slow bodies on the field. But whatever you have to do to not be bad in 2 areas of your defense. It's fine to be bad pass defense, fine to be a bad run defense. You can't be both. You can't be bad at both. That's the biggest thing right now. And I respect the Colts for committing all out to like, we can't let that Packers game happen again, because that was embarrassing,
Yep. Well, it was especially that game because you knew they weren't going to rely on that. Was Willis's first start, I believe, with the Packers at that situation. And there's enough tape out there. There's enough information out there right now about Tyler Huntley and this Dolphins offense to know, like, okay, it doesn't take it's you and I, we're just dudes, right? I mean, we cover these teams, but at the end of the day, we're not in the locker room. It doesn't take an employee of the team to realize what the Miami Dolphins want to do in this game. In the drives last week, 2 weeks ago, when they played the Patriots, when they had success, they committed to the run. They had success with the run. They didn't abandon the run. It's when they start abandoning it is when it goes to hell. So you know what? As there's ties between LaFleur and McDaniel. Take a page out of his book. Just stick to the script. Zach, we talked about that quarterback, Anthony Richardson. So like I said in the last video, not talking about him first is kind of probably burying the lead. I said in the video actually that came out on Wednesday that I am more scared of this Colts offense with Joe Flacco than I am with Anthony Richardson. Now, it's because multiple things. Let's just put it in perspective here. I'm a huge Florida Gators fan, right?
No.
When they weren't using Anthony Richardson when he was super young, they would put him in every once in a while. He had a run of plays where like his first 4 or 5 touches all resulted in touchdowns. The dude was electric. It's like, why are you playing Emory Jones? Give Anthony Richardson, turn the keys over. This guy can't be that bad. What are we doing? Well, fast forward to when he started getting snaps. It was like, I get it. The decision-making isn't there. The accuracy isn't there. You know what he can do, though? He can stand flat-footed and bomb the ball about 70 yards like he did in week 1. Was it Alec Pierce that caught that touchdown?
Yeah, that was an insane throw, man.
Yeah. So, you make, literally the throw of the year, but then go to that Packers game. Remember when he tried throwing, a 5 or 7 yard out on third down and he threw it into the sideline? Mm-hmm. You get that kind of stuff. So, I completely understand why the Colts are turning to Anthony Richardson at this point in time. But I live and I will stand by in week 7, Joe Flacco gives the Colts a better chance to beat the Dolphins than Anthony Richardson. Do you agree? Do you disagree with that?
You know what? Because we don't have much data on Richardson, it's hard to say anything with full confidence, because this year the turnovers and the accuracy have been a major issue, where last year in his starts, the turnovers really weren't a thing, right, and the accuracy was better last season. So something happened in the offseason, or maybe it's just been a bad run of games in there, and he's reverting back to bad habits like he had at Florida, where he is missing a lot more high, and it's resulted in more turnovers. a lot of these turnovers we're seeing from him this year haven't really been bad decisions. They've just been misplaced balls. Like the bad decision in the red zone, I guess, in the Bears game where it's like, what are you doing? But that's it. Young quarterbacks get a little too arm arrogant at times. Like that's really what that was. But for the most part, like he's not getting baited by coverage. He's not like his eyes are good. It's just the feet, man. We gotta calm down and get the ball to the open. It's like he's better when the receiver is not open. When the receiver is open, he freaks out like, oh my gosh, I gotta get the ball to him now, and he doesn't get everything into it. But I will say this: with Joe Flacco, you get this level-headedness of play where the ball is going to come out accurate. You're going to have a higher success rate, more consistency. You're going to move the ball a lot more, because Flacco has just done this for 400 years. Like he's done this for a long time. So there are certain plays like, the last couple weeks that Flacco has started, he's thrown 2 touchdowns, late touchdowns on third down in the red zone where they have just been jump balls to guys. Like one to Mo Alley Cox against the Jaguars on 3rd and 15, the game-winning one this past week to Michael Pittman Jr. And when you have a young quarterback like Anthony Richardson, he's going to think too much. He's not going to think, let me just throw it up there to my guy. But that's what you get out of a veteran guy like Flacco, where it's like, screw it, I'm throwing it up there to my guy, So you get a little bit of that with Flacco. But I will say this about Richardson. With Richardson, the offense is so much more explosive. Like you mentioned, like just the things that he can do with it, but just the what he brings in terms of the fear of his like running ability and just how smooth his arm is, especially compared to even someone like Flacco, who used to be the cannon arm of the NFL. The offense the Colts offense was like a 15% explosive play rate with Richardson. You even go back to that Pittsburgh game where he left early. The Colts were averaging 14 yards per play when he was out there in that game. Flacco comes in, it plummets down to 5 yards a play, and they're able to win that game. But like Richardson got them rolling early. And then on top of that, the run game has been just so putrid with Flacco under center because the Colts built this entire run game around having the quarterback run threat. And obviously Jonathan Taylor's been out in that time too. That's obviously a part of that. So I do think it is kind of a push-pull with that. Like Flacco against a team like the Dolphins where they're struggling at quarterback play right now, you probably want more of the guy who can get you the bare minimum, because who knows if the Dolphins can get you the bare minimum now 100%. With their offense. Where Richardson, it's such a volatile, like you could have a 30-point explosion or you could have a 0-point, shutout. And I think that's the big thing with Richardson. So to a degree, yes, I agree with you. Like Flacco is more likely to get me to that median of like 17 points that I need to maybe win this game. But like, you never know what you're going to get out of Richardson. So Flacco might give you the better percentage of winning it, but you never know what's going to happen with Richardson out there. He's so young, man. He's so young.
Yeah, I get that. And honestly, like even like being a Gators fan and kind of riding that roller coaster, I liked him. I like Anthony Richardson. I thought whoever drafted him, I didn't think it mattered. I thought, sit that guy a year. Like going 4 overall in today's NFL, it's really hard to sit a guy. You want to know what you have, but that's exactly why you bring him back now too. You got to see what you have. What are you gonna accomplish by what 39-year-old Joe Flacco's doing?
We saw it from 2019 till 2022. We saw what the old quarterback did with Indy, and that's get you like 8 wins, 9 wins, and then where do you go? Like get the young kids some data points out there. I don't care if you win 5 games this year, 6 games with them. More data points on what you have with him going forward is way more important than Flacco getting you to 9 wins. Like
it's bigger than
whatever.
That for sure.
Yeah.
Based on what I've seen so far, some statistics, analytics stuff, the Colts are not, I'll call it standouts against the pass. Now, obviously, as we've discussed, the Miami Dolphins are also statistically and on the field pretty terrible passing the ball right now without Tua. But when Miami does try to get Tyreek and Waddle involved, because at the end of the day, they are your best playmakers, you got to try to do something with them. Is there a person in this Colts secondary that they either should be trying to target, or opposite of that they should just, stay away from Tyler Huntley? You're not ready for that challenge.
I will say with Jaylen Jones, their cornerback 1 on the outside, he's not this overly impressive athlete at corner. Like he's a competitive player. He keeps things tough for receivers, but we're talking about Jaylen Waddle. We're talking about Tyreek Hill. Like these are different level of athletes. He can't really turn and run with those guys. I mean, nobody can. But especially Jaylen Jones can't really turn and run with them. I think the Colts are going to do a lot of like off zone coverage and kind of sitting back and making the Dolphins go 10, 15 plays down the field and saying, hey, Tyler Huntley, can you be efficient enough to go 10, 15 plays down the field? It's kind of what they did with Will Levis this past week. Can you be efficient enough to go up and down the field? And eventually you're going to make the Will Levis play. He didn't make that many of those Will Levis plays, but you know what I mean? It's kind of a similar aspect that you'll probably do with Tyler Huntley. But I do think, there are opportunities, especially if Tua were playing in this game, where you really could get this Colts team on like crossers with Hill and Waddle and use that speed, because the Colts aren't this overly fast defense in the secondary. The big thing I will say that the Dolphins can do in this game is the Colts, I mean, outside of last week and even last week, they still had like 7 missed tackles, which was a positive for this defense last week. You really want to attack them in the short game and force them to tackle, because there's been 3 games this year where they've had 10 plus missed tackles. I mean, the Jaguars game at Jacksonville, they had like 16 missed tackles in that game. If you can get the ball to Hill in space and force him to come up and tackle him, and then he gets to that next level speed, or A-Chain with how well he's played when he's played this year, there are opportunities for the Dolphins in this game to where force the Colts to try to tackle you, because that's been the biggest issue with the Colts this year. So there's not really like a one guy you can really target. It's more so get the ball to your playmakers quick and make the Colts have to make a tackle, because the results have been very mixed on this Colts team in terms of making tackles this year.
Yeah, and that entire concept has been a theory and a philosophy for Mike McDaniel. So that sounds great, right? But the problem is now with Huntley, now that you're not necessarily worried about Tua in the mid-range game, the bombs to Tyreek Hill. So many teams are playing up, and they're ready for they're going to throw screen passes to Tyreek. They're going to play. They're going to get this stuff going on outside right away, and it hasn't been there, and it's frustrated. I mean, myself, Dolphins fans alike. It's just the offense. You'll get a couple of things going. In the Seattle game, we gave Jaylen Wright 2 carries. One went for 9, one went for 8. He didn't touch the ball on the ground again. It's just it's that kind of stuff right now with McDaniel, where he's shown the ability to come up with these plays, to call them at the right time. But so many other times it's 3rd and 1 and we're doing the craziest off to the side play and we're losing 4 or 5 yards. What are you doing there? We're abandoning the run. We're just doing everything so far wide, which, like you said, in theory sounds good. And it's playing to a potential weakness, to a potential area that you can exploit. But so many teams now, since it's been Huntley, it's like everyone's playing up, everyone's ready for that side stuff. So I like it. I just wish McDaniel would do something a little bit different, maybe to find a different way to get them the ball in space. But I don't know what the answer is. That's why Mike McDaniel got his extension right before the season, and now it's essentially time to earn it.
Yeah, I will say with this Colts defense, yes, you want to hit them with horizontal stuff a good bit, but I think what you really want to do with this Colts defense is throw a lot of counter and power stuff in between the tackles. Grover Stewart is a game wrecker. You have to be worried of him on the interior. At nose tackle, he can destroy an entire running game plan. But aside from that, their middle 4 defenders, their 2 linebackers, and their other defensive tackle have not played well whatsoever this season for the Colts. So you can mix in these little jet passes and quick wide receiver screens, but Kenny Moore's out there. They got Nick Cross, who's been a great tackler this year. They're gonna make you pay for stuff like that, and they're gonna get you in negative situations where Tyler Huntley has to throw after that. And that's the last thing you want right now if you're the Miami Dolphins. So if you do a lot of these counter stuff inside, counter stuff out of the gun, even like delayed handoffs up the middle, and you force Taven Bryan to eat a double team, you force Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed have to read some motion mesh or whatever that's happening, and then come and fill the run. That's where the Green Bay Packers killed. That's where the Tennessee Titans killed them. So there is a path to running and beating this Colts defense. It's just if you get too creative with it and too wonky with it, you can get into negative situations. And I'm not saying the Colts have thrived in those situations, but the Dolphins certainly have it with Tyler Huntley and Skylar Thompson either. So that's kind of where the craziness of this whole matchup is, with one team that can't really throw the ball and one team that can't really stop the pass, but something has to break here in this one.
Yeah, I think I'm going to cut up that last 45 seconds that you said. Somehow find a way to get it sent over to Mike McDaniel. Next thing you know, Dolphins are back in the mix.
There you go. And the Colts fans will call me a traitor to the team and all that, and I'll get that whole thing right there.
Right. We briefly touched on Jonathan Taylor and the injury report. I talked about Jonathan Taylor in the first preview video this week as well. I said in my opinion, like I said, I'm no Colts expert by any means, but from what I've seen, he's the engine. He's what makes the Colts offense go. How much does him simply playing impact your confidence level in regards to the outcome of this one?
Oh man, it would be huge. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, this whole run game is built around Jonathan Taylor's patience and Anthony
Yeah.
Richardson's threat. Like just the threat of Anthony Richardson. And then you're having these light boxes where Taylor can just pick and choose his battles and where he wants to go. And like Taylor this year has not been very good at breaking tackles, but I think he's like third in the NFL in yards before contact. It's like 3.5 yards. And the crazy thing is, people will look at that and say, oh, this is an offensive line stat. Obviously, the offensive line. Trey Sermon's got like 1.2 yards before, before contact.
Yep.
And a lot of that is Taylor's patience. It's just that ability to, oh, here's a good hole that I can hit, but there's a better one that's going to open up on the backside if I just bait this linebacker this way.
Yep.
So it's so much of that with Taylor. And I think that just adds this extra dimension to the Colts run game. Now, I will say this, if Sermon can't go and Taylor can't go, but the Colts do get Richardson back, the running back that's going to be starting is Tyler Goodson, who he has one speed. That one speed is pretty fast. And the thing is, when you have a guy like Richardson, again, where you're going to have lighter boxes and have these lanes, he might pick just the good lane to go, but Tyler Goodson's going to hit that with 100 miles per hour and just run straight. We saw the past week he had a 33-yard run against the Tennessee Titans. So it should be a better run game for the Colts than what we saw these last couple of weeks, especially if Richardson's back and if Goodson's starting. But like you said, man, just getting Taylor back would be huge. I don't know if it's going to be this week. Again, high ankle sprains, typically like a 3 to 6 week injury recovery, and we're at that 3-week mark right now. Yeah, I think it'll be another week, but we'll see. I feel good about the other guys on offense, but Taylor, not super great about that one.
That's going to be tricky. Selfishly, let's get him healthy.
Yeah, get him healthy.
Back for
Jonathan Taylor once a Miami Dolphin great last offseason, right? That's all the trade rumors.
Oh man, what could have been, right?
Right. Would have been fun. You guys could have sent us A-Chain. It would have been a blast. I think that would have been great.
I love Devon A-Chan. The problem is, literally, it's always something different. When he is healthy, he's questionable every single week, and it's just. I don't want to say it's troublesome because we have Raheem Mostert, you have Jaylen Wright, you have Jeff Wilson. You've got a stable of running backs, but Devon A-Chan is just, you saw it last year. What did he was going at a clip there where he was averaging like 8 or 9 yards per carry. I think he still finished with like 6 or 7. Yeah. The dude he adds a whole different level of just playmaking ability. And I think what ended up happening this year with Mostert getting hurt so early, it's like Mostert gets hurt early, Tua gets hurt early, you rely on the run game, and all of a sudden now you're trying to make A-Chan, who's more of like an outright playmaker than a traditional running back, and you're trying to make him your RB1, your do-it-all everything running back. And it just didn't end up working, and then next thing you know, boom, he gets a concussion. So like you said, we talk about injuries and frustration. That's just my only qualm right now with A-Chan is just staying healthy. So selfishly, I talked about this earlier in the week as well. I would rather the team just let him get healthy. Now that Mostert is back, Mostert has looked pretty good. I really like Jaylen Wright. If Jeff Wilson needs some carries, that's great. But then even more selfishly, the guy I'm playing in fantasy this week has Devon A-Chan. Just like Jonathan Taylor, let's all get healthy.
Yeah, everyone get healthy. Yeah, for sure. Everyone on my fantasy team has to tough it out. Everyone against me has to just get healthy.
Right. Rub some dirt on it. You're gonna be fine. Yeah. I've got a random question before we wrap things up here with some predictions as well. I had a huge draft crush on this guy. A lot of my viewers did as well. Laiatu Latu. This dude coming out of college, I wanted him so bad. He was quite literally probably my top ranked edge rusher. I've seen him make a couple of plays so far, but like I said, I'm no Colts expert. How is he looking? Is he living up to the draft hype? Has he fallen below expectations? What is he looking like so far this season? Because I know a lot of Dolphins fans really liked what he was going to bring to the table if we would have selected him.
Yeah, we've actually had a lot of conversations about him recently because, like we said, with injuries here, the Colts defensive line was supposed to be the biggest strength on the team. DeForest Buckner, Samson Ebukam coming off of 9.5 sacks, Kwity Paye coming off 8 sacks, Dio Dangbo, Tyquan Lewis being productive. Like a lot of good rushers coming back to this team. Yeah. And then they all got hurt. Every single one of them. Like Laiatu today. Yeah, Laiatu Latu was supposed to be a sub pass rusher who came in for like 20 snaps a game with a ton of juice and just did his thing, and just came in off the bench and did his thing. Ebukam goes down with an Achilles tear in training camp. He's out for the year. DeForest Buckner, I know it's a different position, but interior presence gets placed on IR with a high ankle sprain.
Yeah.
Kwity Paye misses a couple games. Tyquan Lewis is on IR. Like, all these guys are hurt. So now Laiatu Latu goes from, hey, rookie, you get to learn and be a sub pass rusher.
Yeah.
Now you are getting 50, 60 snaps a game on defense at edge. You have to fit against the run. You have to be there, taking on double teams. And I think it's worn him down a little bit to the point where he hasn't been as productive. And even on top of that, he hasn't finished a ton of sacks when he's gotten back there. Like, Caleb Williams and Justin Fields spun out of at least 3 sacks that he would have had this season, because those guys are freaky athletes. But like,
Correct.
Let's finish the play, man. But again, he's a rookie. Like, you have that, but because he's been thrust into being a starter, people are like, oh man, this guy's been a letdown. He hasn't really popped in all these games. Like, yeah, but he's a rookie. Like, you're expecting to be this next level guy. And sure that he should have been more polished than most rookies because he's a 24-year-old and was super productive in college, but it takes time. As of right now, he has 1 sack on the season, which was that forced fumble put away sack against the Bears. Really strong play from him. And then he has, I think it's a 16% pass rush win rate, according to Pro Football Focus, which is 15th best among all edge rushers right now. Pretty darn good for a guy who's let down so far this year. So he seems like a positive regression guy. Like, eventually it's going to click for him, and he's going to start finishing plays and doing some good things. But it hasn't really popped yet. But I think the good signs are there. Like, he had a couple good reps this last week against J.C. Latham with the Titans. So I'm not worried long term. He might not be super productive in this matchup here, but like, by the end of the year, he'll be a really solid player.
Yeah, that's definitely a guy I think a lot of Dolphins fans will be watching for in this game, to kind of play like the what could have been and how does he compare against Chop Robinson, who we ended up taking in that draft. I don't remember what year it was. I wrote an article when I was doing fantasy and draft stuff and everything, and it was basically an idea of tempering expectations if your team drafts a first-round edge rusher. And I went back to how many years of rookies, and quite honestly, it's so few that even get above like 5 sacks their rookie year. And I forgot who it even was. It's like your TJ Watts, your Nick Bosa's. It's literally the guys that are on pace to have Hall of Fame careers. There's Myles Garrett, maybe one of them. I don't remember who they all were, but there's so many guys who are really good edge rushers now that didn't really pop off their first 1 to 2 years. It's a position that takes time. It's kind of like, I view it as like almost like the tight end position on the opposite side of the ball. Like, it takes tight ends a long time to convert from the college game to the pro game because of just how different the style is and your ability to block and be in line and maybe line up in the slot. And you're doing so much more. And guess what? If you can't block as a tight end, well, now you can't be on the field because you're going to end up telegraphing all the plays and everything. It's kind of what the Dolphins went through with Mike Gesicki once Mike McDaniel came on. So a weird long rant that didn't necessarily relate to Laiatu Latu there. But at the end of the day, I think that's a player that the Dolphins fans will be keeping an eye on. Zach, I didn't tell you before this, but I have to put you on a spot. If you're given a prediction, final score prediction, I asked the listeners for every prediction video. I forgot to in the beginning. So listeners, you drop your predictions in the comments as well. As always, load it up with a bunch of Dolphins wins because I know Zach's going to be one that has to go the other way. So, Zach, if you're giving a prediction as of today, I know it's hard. We're recording it sort of early in the week. Throw something out there, though. What do you got?
Oh, man. You know what? I will say this about the Colts. If they have serious playoff aspirations, you got to beat Tyler Huntley. Gosh, I can't say his name. All week I've been operating I thought it was PJ Walker all week in my head that we were playing against. This is how Tyler Huntley is just not. My brain was saying, oh, it's PJ Walker, not Tyler Huntley. Just same person in my head for whatever reason. But yeah, Tyler Huntley this week. Look, if you have playoff aspirations, you have to beat Tyler Huntley. I don't care. Like, look, Tyreek Hill, great player. Jaylen Waddle, great player. Mike McDaniel does a really good job for them. I mean, I know he's had some struggles this year, but really good head coach. Achane, I mean, gosh, like the talent on this offense is good. But like at the end of the day, quarterback play is so important. I said it last week. You can't lose to Will Levis if you want to make the playoffs. You can't lose to Tyler Huntley if you want to make the playoffs. So I'm going to go with another kind of ugly one. I'm going to say Richardson starts. It's going to be a little sporadic from him, obviously. We'll go 23-17 Colts in this one. A game that probably could have been a really fun shootout if Richardson started from day one this year and like actually like was playing every game and progressively getting better. And Tua was healthy. This could have been like a really fun shootout game. And now I'm thinking it's going to be a lot like the Colts-Titans game last week, where it's just like a snooze fest for the most part. And whoever isn't the worst thing ever by the end of the game probably wins.
And no lie spotted. I think that what you said at the end there was spot on. I think so many Dolphins fans are essentially like holding their breath, plugging their nose, just waiting for this concussion protocol to come to an end so we can see Tua return and hopefully have some sense of an offense moving forward. Because like you said, every game has just been, I don't want to say hard. I will say hard to watch. As a Dolphins fan over the last couple of years, it's been so different compared to what the Dolphins offense has looked like. I always say the Dolphins offense pre-Mike McDaniel was just a couple of decades of just being constipated. It was hard to get 7 yards. Mike McDaniel shows up. It's 3rd and 11. We're going for 15 yards. Like it turned into that. So now reverting back to who's starting at quarterback today? Is it going to be Skylar Thompson? Is it going to be Huntley? Is it going to be PJ Walker? Like, what's it matter?
In my head, he's there. Yeah, in my head canon, he's PJ Walker is walking in that building tomorrow.
100%. And this offense was so built for Tua that it's to the point where it's like, the offense is going to look like crap until he's back. But because I knew you were going to go with the Titans, like I said, if I'd have went solo on this video, I quite honestly probably would have given the Titans the edge. But because we got to even it out, we got to have a little balance. I'm going to go Dolphins 20, Colts 17. And it's like I said, it's going to be ugly. That's homerism coming out at its finest. Don't get me wrong by any means there. What I said though earlier in this week, and I'll say it again, just probably a little bit differently. We asked for when Tua gets out, this team needs to go 3-1 would be the dream. If they go 2-2 without Tua, what more could we have honestly asked for? And right now you're 1-2. You've got a chance to go 2-2 against a team that is banged up. That is going back to, yes, their starting quarterback, but who statistically a much lower completion percentage than a guy like Joe Flacco. He's throwing for 50 or 75 yards less per game. He's got a much worse touchdown to interception ratio. Yeah, I don't want to overstate it. I don't want to think the Dolphins are going to go in there and win. You got a chance. If you make it ugly, if you muddy it up, you've got a chance. Like I said, the homerism comes in on this one. We can go 2-2. You get Tua back. And then who knows? But like I said, I don't want to come off too homerish in this one because I do realize that we have one of the worst offensive lines in this league. I know that we didn't look flawless against the Jaguars. We were terrible against the Bills before Tua's injury. I know that it goes deeper than just the quarterback. But you know what? Give it a little bit more time. It's a lot of the same pieces. It's a better defense than it was last year. You do have a chance if you can go 2-2 in this stretch. If you don't go 2-2 in this stretch, kind of like what you were saying earlier, are you a playoff team? Are you going to be able to turn it around at this point in time? It's going to be tricky. So it's homerish, but I'm going Dolphins 20, Colts 17.
Look, man, we gave up 37 points to the Jaguars. There's nothing you could say that would shock. You could say Dolphins like 55-10 or something. I'd be like, all right, whatever. Like, cool. Like, we lost to Malik Willis not throwing the ball like against Green Bay. We lost to 37 points allowed to the Jaguars. Like, the Colts are not in some stratosphere above the Dolphins right now where I'm like, oh, this is disrespectful to my team. Like, no, we're talking about two ugly teams right now. This could be some ugly football we're watching. We're going to watch 70 run plays this weekend, and we're gonna love it on the turf field out there. It's gonna be a blast.
And like you said, we're gonna love every second of it, right?
Yes.
Oh yes. Well, Zach, I went longer than I said we were gonna go. That's typically how it is every time we've collaborated in the past. I mentioned it in the past. I'd worked with you. We've done some fantasy stuff. We've done some NFL draft stuff in the past. So I know that most of the viewers of this are going to be Dolphins fans. We'll probably clip in some Colts fans. So obviously, Colts fan, give our guy Zach here a follow. You're not going to find much better in regards to Colts. And hey, even Dolphins fans, give this guy a follow. Colts are a conference team. We like to see what's going on with them. Zach pays attention to a lot of the NFL draft stuff still. So in the offseason, he's going to be able to give you some stuff that you can definitely get some use and some knowledge out of as well. So before you sign off here, Zach, I did have your information going on the scroll earlier, but if you want to tell people where they can find you on your socials as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, you guys can find me over on Twitter at Zach Hicks 2. I'm pretty active on there. I'm the co-host of Locked On Colts with the Locked On Podcast Network. And if you guys want to see some of my written content, because I know all you Dolphins fans want to see like articles about Samuel Womack and Mo Alley Cox and stuff like that, like the prime stuff for you Dolphins fans over at horseshoehuddle.com through Sports Illustrated.
Beautiful. Well, thank you once again, Zach. Stay on for a second afterwards. I want to chat with you about one thing that just came to mind here once you said that. But we'll log off for the video purposes. Dolphins fans, we'll be back after the game recapping this. So like I said, get subscribed if you haven't done so already. We'll be back after the game recapping this puppy. Thanks once again to Zach for coming on. And until next time, fins up.